so far during the 2020 presidential campaign. The second and final debate, it turns out, was actually a debate, a brief interlude of normalcy in an otherwise highly abnormal year, and a reprieve for voters turning off by the candidates' noxious first face-off. The facts took a hit right out of the gate. President Trump's first line of the night about COVID-19 deaths was false and set the tone as he and Democratic rival Joe Biden unleashed a torrent of claims in their last presidential debate. Donald Trump is one of the, and I quote, most racist presidents in modern history. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden said that as he tore into the current U.S. president during the final presidential debate and accused him of pouring, and I quote again, fuel on every racist fire. Less than a third of U.S. voters say they will cast their ballots in person on Election Day, the lowest percentage in American history. Nearly two-thirds plan to vote early or have already voted. President Trump plans to cast his ballot in person tomorrow, taking advantage of Florida's early voting period. The White House says the president will vote in West Palm Beach, a short drive from his Mar-a-Lago private club, and as of last year, his official residence. Following a debate question on immigration, President Trump said that the only undocumented immigrants who appear for their court dates are those with the, and I quote, lowest IQ. During a rare presidential debate exchange about immigration, President Trump defended his administration's family separation policy for undocumented immigrants, which has left hundreds of children without their parents for years, saying they are, and I quote, so well taken care of in federal facilities. And right after that, the Lincoln Project released a searing 4-second ad combining his words with the wails of children. A federal judge urged the Trump administration to do more to help court-appointed researchers find the hundreds of parents who were separated from their children after they crossed the U.S.-Mexico border beginning in 2017. A court filing revealed this week that researchers have been unable to track down the parents of 545 children, a number much larger than previously known, and that drew an outcry. Joe Biden warned of a dark winter while President Trump promised that the coronavirus is going away. There's sharply divergent views on the coronavirus pandemic, which has killed more than 220,000 Americans, opened that final debate last night. Europe's reported coronavirus cases more than doubled in 10 days, crossing 200,000 infections for the first time. President Trump and his Democratic challenger have blamed each other and each other's political parties for the failure to provide a new round of coronavirus aid relief. Trump blamed Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, even as she continues to negotiate a deal with Trump's emissary, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Fugitive U.S. whistleblower Edward Snowden has been granted permanent residency in Russia. The former U.S. intelligence contractor who revealed in 2013 that the U.S. government was spying on its citizens has been living in exile in Russia since those revelations. Threatening emails claiming to be from a pro-Trump group called Proud Boys that were sent to voters in Florida and other states earlier this week appear to have come to a halt after the FBI accused Iran and possibly Russia of being behind the attacks to influence the U.S. election. U.S. officials said that Russian hackers have targeted the networks of dozens of state and local governments in the United States in recent days, stealing data from at least 2 servers. American intelligence officials described the Trump administration's decision to focus on Iran's election disinformation campaign last night as concerning, characterizing efforts by Russia to be a bigger threat to stabilizing Americans' faith in the integrity of the election results on the 3rd of November. Azerbaijan and ethnic Armenian forces clashed in several areas hours before talks were due to start in Washington to try to end the deadliest fighting in the mountain enclave for over a quarter of a century. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was scheduled to meet the foreign ministers of Azerbaijan and Armenia in a new attempt to end nearly a month of bloodshed. The Israeli military said this morning that it launched overnight airstrikes in the Gaza Strip after Palestinian militants fired 2 rockets with no reports of casualties or major damage on either side. The United Nations has said this morning that the 2 sides in Libyan military talks had reached a historic achievement with a permanent ceasefire agreement across the war-torn North African country. All mercenaries and foreign fighters supposed to depart from Libya within 3 months of the signing of this Libyan nationwide ceasefire this morning. The coronavirus outbreak in Turkey has risen again nationwide and following this recent surge in daily symptomatic patient numbers. Spain has become the first country in Western Europe to surpass the 1 million coronavirus infections. The coronavirus is spreading through France faster than at the peak of the first wave in spring. France has extended curfews to around 2/3 of its population, and Belgium's foreign minister was taken into intensive care with COVID-19. Belgium, one of the European countries worst hit by the new coronavirus, has tightened restrictions on social contacts today by banning fans from sports matches, limiting the number of people in cultural spaces and closing theme parks. Poland will close restaurants and bars for 2 weeks and limit public gatherings to 5 people, according to its prime minister, after a new coronavirus infection rate has hit a daily record of more than 13,000. Norway announcing stricter measures next week to limit the spread of the coronavirus, and the number of new coronavirus infections in Romania rose by a daily record of over 5,000 in the past 24 hours. The Philippine capital of Manila today cancelled an annual procession of a centuries-old black wooden statue of Jesus Christ that draws millions of Roman Catholic devotees as the coronavirus pandemic continues to afflict the country. The Philippines, renowned for its colorful religious rituals, has the second highest number of coronavirus infections and deaths in Southeast Asia, behind Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. Sri Lanka's parliament voted to give President Gotabaya Rajapaksa widespread powers to appoint top officials and dissolve the legislature after an acrimonious 2-day debate during which the opposition accused him of becoming a constitutional dictator. The populist leader was elected president in November and swiftly appointed his brother, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, as prime minister. Democratic candidate Joe Biden denounced President Trump for befriending North Korea's thug leader, likening his diplomacy to working with Hitler. North Korea has warned its citizens to stay indoors to avoid a yellow dust storm in which it claims it could carry the coronavirus over from China. China has warned Canadian lawmakers to halt their blatant interference in its internal affairs in the latest episode of a rumbling diplomatic feud between the two nations. And Chinese leader Xi Jinping condemned unilateralism, protectionism and extreme egoism in a jab at the United States made during a rally this morning to mark the 70th anniversary of China's entry into the 1950-53 Korean War. China's foreign ministry said it may decide not to recognize British-issued passports for Hong Kong residents in retaliation for London's moves to open a path to citizenship for those holding the documents. And the situation on the line of actual control will probably be discussed at some point during the 2+2 dialogue, and the United States is watching the situation closely at the India-China border situation. Federal law enforcement agencies have arrested 15 students, including 11 from India, on charges of fraudulently staying in the United States. And we have Sabrina Singh, the U.S. press secretary to Senator Kamala Harris, who said that if elected as the U.S. President, Joe Biden plans to advance the relationship between India and the United States. President Trump described the air in China, Russia and India as filthy as he denounced Democratic rival Joe Biden's plans to tackle climate change. New Delhi was blanketed in a noxious haze today as air pollution levels in parts of the city soared to severe levels. 10 of the 35 monitoring stations across the national capital recorded the air quality's dip into the severe category today. India is looking to Army Chief General Narawane's upcoming visit to Nepal to help put bilateral ties back on an even keel after a bitter border row. And Indian Navy's missile corvette INS Prabal fired an anti-ship missile during a practice drill. The missile was launched somewhere from the Arabian Sea. The Russian Sputnik V vaccine against COVID-19 will be tested in India on 100 volunteers as COVID-19 recoveries in India have crossed the 69 lakh mark. India has reached a significant milestone in its fight against COVID, and the country's 7 lakh number has been reached now below after 2 months. India has crossed the 10 crore mark in conducting tests for the detection of COVID-19. And Delhi recorded the highest number of COVID-19 cases in the last 26 days. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi held his first election rally today since the coronavirus took hold in the country, drawing thousands of cheering supporters, standing shoulder to shoulder and ignoring social distancing rules. And that happened in Bihar. He's scheduled to hold 12 election rallies. And RJD leader Tejashwi Yadav asserted his father and party supremo Lalu Prasad will come out of jail on the 9th of next month after securing bail in a fodder scam case. For the first time in their history, Chennai Super Kings are staring at the possibility of not making it to the IPL. Legendary Indian cricketer and captain of the 1983 World Cup winning side Kapil Dev has suffered a heart scare and has undergone an angioplasty at a hospital in New Delhi. Azhar Ali might not be Pakistan's test captain during next month's tour of New Zealand, terming the forthcoming home series against Zimbabwe as another positive step towards the revival of international cricket in the country. Cricket Board Chairman Ehsan Mani said next year will be even more remarkable. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all that I have in the news for you on this 23rd day of October. Wishing you all a lovely Friday.